Hey Revolutionaries, I'm excited to bring you this week's episode with Nick and Eric, where we're talking food trucks in Lake Tahoe. Yeah, these guys, they're lifelong friends, and they're both originally from the New England area, so New Hampshire and Vermont, but somehow over the years they both have found themselves in Lake Tahoe and South Lake Tahoe, and they are collaborating and combining their efforts on this new food truck. And the most interesting thing about it is that there are no food trucks in South Lake Tahoe. Yes, let me say that again. There are no food trucks in South Lake Tahoe. That's such a weird concept to me. I just would think by now, there's food trucks everywhere in all these locations, especially a tourist location, especially on the West Coast where, the food truck scene, I think, probably got started in LA years ago or, just got that vibe out there. Certainly Portland's close, which is a great food truck scene. But anyways, these guys are pioneering, and things are changing out there. Some legislation's been passed, so now it's available. And these guys will have the first food truck in South Lake Tahoe, so I can't wait for you to listen to this episode. But before we get there real quick, I just wanted to give a shout out to everybody. First of all, thanks on the feedback of the last episode I released that had the little meditation, my semi-guided meditation at the end. So I got some good feedback on that. Thanks for listening, and thanks for checking it out. And again, I'm a big fan of meditation, especially during these crazy times where you feel like the world's ending in some ways, or your world's really changing around you. It's just a great way to reset, calm your mind down, and let creativity kind of flourish and flood into your mind. It's really great. Really works wonders for me. Anyways, so thanks on that for the feedback. Maybe I'll throw in another one of those sometime. But also, I was checking the people out there. I want to give a shout out to all the folks that have been giving ratings and reviews. So I was just checking the Apple Podcast system here, and I don't know if I had given Ridiculous Patronus 1. It's a long word how it's spelled here. Ridiculous Patronus 1. I don't remember if I'd given them a shout out or not, but they give a 5-star review and they say, "Fantastic, very informative for entrepreneurs and advancing in your career. The host is very engaging and this positive ID very helpful, very relatable. Looking forward to more." So thanks for that shout out. And again, if you're getting something out of the episodes out there, let me know, or maybe even let me know what you don't like. If you want to give me a 1-star review, that's fine. I guess I'll take it on the chin if I have to. But leave a review, leave some feedback that helps everybody that might be interested in listening to the show find out what it's about, or figure out what the value is for them. Yeah. And if not, if you're not going to leave a review, at least tell a friend about it. Share an episode with a friend. If you're getting something out of it, likely your friends will get something out of it, and they will love you for it. And I will love you for it. So, and all the revolutionaries will love you for it. So, just keep that in mind. All right, without any other delays, let's get to this episode because my mouth is watering just thinking about Nick and Eric's new Crepes and Craft food truck business. So let's hear about it. This episode of Jim's Reinvention Revolution is brought to you by MGS Graphics, a graphics production support firm delivering services to ad agencies, graphic designers, brand managers, retailers, and product manufacturers worldwide. MGS Graphics is not only reinventing, they are revolutionizing graphics production support. So how do they do it? Well, they free up your team to focus on big ideas while MGS Graphics handles the execution. Their skilled experts are ready to jump in when your project load spikes so you can avoid the headaches and extra overhead cost of hiring new staff. Plus, you won't lose out on work opportunities because of delivery and production timelines. Need more than just production? MGS Graphics also has a fully staffed creative team. Ask about their design services and agency partnerships. So, if you're looking for a partner to accelerate and support your business's growth, go to mgsgraphicspro.com/JJRR for 15% off your first project. 15%? That is revolutionary. Go to mgsgraphicspro.com/JJRR. That's mgsgraphicspro.com/JJRR.
Welcome to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, the show that explores reinvention in the digital age as it relates to career, creativity, and technology. Stay tuned for interviews with professionals, entrepreneurs, and creatives that have reimagined success and are making a pivot. If you'd like to listen to the entire back catalog, visit JimJim'sReinventionRevolution.com for instant access. And now, here's your host, Jim Jim.
Yeah, we got water and coffee, and we got it all on the floor right now so that it's not, we're not putting the coffee down and ruining the audio.
Right. Right. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
All right, well,
awesome.
Let's do it then. Hey, everybody. Hey, this is Jim Jim, and welcome to episode 72 of Jim Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. And I'm talking today with Nick and Eric, and we're talking food trucks in Lake Tahoe. So, guys, welcome to the Reinvention Revolution.
Thank you so much, Jim. It's awesome to be here. We're very excited to be speaking with you. It's been a while, my friend.
Yeah, it has been a while, and I'm excited too. And hi, Eric. You could say hi too.
Hi, Jim. How you doing?
Okay. All right. I just don't want to leave you out, man. So Nick has told me that Eric is not, very verbose, which is fine, But we'll get into their story, which I'm excited to do because I know when everyone probably saw this topic, when they see the new episode that's out, food trucks in Lake Tahoe, I know exactly what everyone's thinking out there that's listening. Okay. And what everyone's thinking right now is food trucks in Lake Tahoe. That sounds awesome. Like, why haven't you had an episode focused on food trucks in Lake Tahoe before? I mean, it must be an incredible scene out there, right? I mean, it's a tourist destination with all the ski resorts and beautiful lake and beautiful people running around that are, athletic and fit and hiking. I mean, the food truck scene is off the chain, right, guys? Or is it?
Not exactly.
Not exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what is fascinating me and people that aren't privy to this knowledge, that don't live in Tahoe or haven't visited there. There really hasn't been a food truck scene. So this is one of the reasons why I'm really interested in hearing about kind of the history, the backstory of what's been going on in Tahoe with regard to food trucks and what's happening now.
Yeah, it's as you alluded to, Jim, Tahoe is one of America's top tourist destinations. I mean, we're a town of, so we're based out of South Lake Tahoe on the South Shore, and we're a town of about 28,000, give or take, right now. But every year we see over 1.5 million visitors.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, it's a heavily touristed area, of course, and as you mentioned, with all the ski resorts around the lake, the winters are popping, and then of course, the summers. I mean, as a former New Englander, both Eric and I, the summers out here are just incredible. It's 80 to 85 degrees, sunny, no humidity. You really can't beat them.
Right.
So, of course, it begs the question, why are there no food trucks in Tahoe? And I guess in terms of keeping this, less than a 3-hour narrative, Tahoe is just always kind of one of the reasons why we are such a premier tourist destination is because of the preservation efforts that have, gone on historically here in Tahoe. So along with that, of course, everything is very, very, very highly regulated.
I see.
And I get, one of the fears with really everything that happens in Tahoe is, and we're very much dealing with it right now, is a giant influx of tourism that basically is difficult to control with respect to, their level of respect that, for the lake, for our amazing, environment that we have up here, that all the locals, well, I shouldn't say all, but most of the locals have, that not all the tourists display. Right now is we're having a kind of a weird situation going on where, because of COVID and because, California has been particularly hard hit where we're located, the Bay Area in particular, where I would say, roughly about 75% of our tourism comes from the Bay Area, has been and still is mostly shut down.
Right.
So really, people in the Bay Area are not traveling nearly as much as they have been in the past, at least to more, exotic locations. So we're getting a huge influx of tourism right now that is creating a little bit of controversy within the community.
I see. Sort of like tourists versus locals. Is that kind of the feel of it, or when you say?
Oh yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. It's there. I guess there's like two factions in Tahoe, which is interesting, and this does lend to where we're going here with the food trucks. There are the people here that the population and community that is resistant to tourism, understandably, for some reasons,
Sure.
and then there is a faction of our population that understands and acknowledges the fact that we're not manufacturing anything here in Tahoe. We're not
Right.
a steel town.
I mean, that's what you depend
We're
on
not-
for the economy, right? Yeah, it's tourists.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Tourism drives our economy. So, it does come with its, headaches. I mean, obviously, but, we need it.
Right,
Tahoe
right.
would not exist. We wouldn't be able to put food on our tables and roofs over our heads if it weren't for that tourism.
I see.
Yeah.
So okay, well, let me ask you a question about in terms of like the history of not having food trucks and that rub between the locals and the tourists. That's it's always there to some extent, I guess.
Right.
Maybe it's exacerbated now because of the shutdown and people's travel habits are changing. Obviously, people that would go other places for vacation, maybe they're going closer to home. So maybe Tahoe's filling up with different types of people. But why historically has there been ordinances that did not allow food trucks, and what has changed recently? Is it due to COVID, or is it due to some other change that now it sounds like there's a window of opportunity here for you?
So the winds of change actually shifted about a little more than a year ago now.
Okay, so pre-COVID then.
Pre-COVID, yes, pre-COVID. So, to answer the first part of your question, historically, I think the fear with allowing food trucks here in Tahoe is that, again, I mean, we're a pretty small community. I mean, there are only about, I would say, roughly a little bit over 50,000 inhabitants around the entire lake.
Right.
Which is about 72 miles around. We don't have, what I'm saying is like there's not a lot of established Tahoe only food trucks that have existed here historically. So the fear was, if we open it up to food trucks, then we're going to have all these food trucks that racing up from Reno, which is Reno, Nevada, which is about an hour away.
Gotcha.
And Sacramento, which is about 2 hours away, on the California side,
Right.
kind of racing up to Tahoe to take advantage of our huge tourist crowd.
Right.
And it would be difficult to kind of regulate that from a standpoint in which we were.
I see. So kind of worried. They were kind of worried more on a parochial basis of others coming from outside and taking that money back to their communities, and Tahoe just losing out if they allowed that to happen. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Probably a small part of it, but also, as Nick cited, in terms of regulatory, if folks are coming from out of our area into our area, how are we ensuring that they are behaving properly? Are they properly inspected, insured?
I see.
Are they handling themselves professionally in that? Are they dumping their water properly? Are they polluting our area because it's not their home? So those are larger concerns as well.
That makes sense because it's such a pristine area. You want to really keep your hands on top of all that kind of environmental stuff, right? Okay.
Absolutely. It's always a huge concern here in Tahoe. So I think it's kind of multifaceted. So both parochial and like, Eric just alluded to, kind of the health and safety concerns as well.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what's changed just recently that it sounds like for the first time, this is maybe an exclusive here, right, on Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast.
Yeah. There you go, breaking news.
That you guys are announcing this new, for the first time, you'll probably be the first food truck ever in Lake Tahoe. What has changed just recently to allow this regulations to be put in place?
Right. So I guess, just to clear up a little bit of confusion, we are not going to be the first food truck in the Lake Tahoe Basin in general.
Okay.
There are a few others that exist up on the North Shore right now.
Okay.
Yeah, but we are poised to become the first ever here in South Lake Tahoe, within the municipality of South Lake Tahoe,
Gotcha.
which is, of course, the biggest population center, around the Lake Tahoe Basin.
I see.
What has changed? So I think we have a, Tahoe, like every community, is evolving, and we have leadership in place here, on city council, business ownership, a lot of different areas now where we're getting kind of, it's younger, but it's not just a youth thing. It's also
Right.
like a little bit more like, kind of, okay, we don't necessarily, we're looking for new ways to do business, new ways to encourage commerce, and yeah, along with, a lot of the new restaurants, breweries, wineries, other places that have spawned here, we have, there's been a craving now. And, I think the food truck scene, nationwide, has really gained a lot of steam, everywhere.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I know where you are. It's gotten huge.
Yeah,
over there in Ohio.
It's a pretty good scene. I mean, I remember I'm just thinking when I was thinking about, talking to you guys today, I was thinking like it's got to be at least 10 years ago or more where, the Food Network channel had like food truck races and all these crazy programs. And, there were teams from Cleveland, from Austin, from, San Diego, different, parts of the country. Like this has been a thing for a while. And now we have our, there's actually like built food truck parks, a couple that are in Cleveland now. And, Cleveland's kind of a foodie town. So I was just shocked really when I heard like, wait, there's no food trucks in Tahoe. That kind of blew my mind, really.
Well, especially when you consider, that, I mean, we're going to be, again, Tahoe is split between California and Nevada, but we are going to be conducting most of our business on the California side. And when you take into effect, for all intents and purposes, the food truck, scene in this country was kind of launched in LA, in the Los Angeles area, so like we are in the state in which it all kind of began.
That's right.
But as anyone in California knows, Southern California and Northern California are very different places.
Right. That's right. California's a big place.
It's a big place, right? And there's a lot of different, kind of makeup to California. But particularly with regards to Lake Tahoe and South Lake Tahoe in general, it has been a thing where, again, just because of the lack, or the lack of knowledge, I guess, or the lack of consideration, perhaps more accurately, in terms of like how to properly regulate this in a place like South Lake Tahoe, has been the big issue. They have since kind of, and so City Council passed the ordinance allowing what they term as mobile vending to occur in Lake Tahoe in March of 2019, or in South Lake Tahoe, I should say. In March of 2019, and they did, with doing so, they kind of established what was called like an introductory period. So with that introductory period, it wasn't like, okay, hey, food trucks are allowed now, the floodgates are open, everyone come on out, park wherever you want along the side of the street, and we're going to be. It's not at all like that. So
Sure.
and still to right now, the food trucks we're only allowed to operate on properties, that have been mobile vending permitted. So, there are a whole slew of stipulations, regulations in terms of like what that actually means and what you need to do to get that permit. But as of right now, we still only have two permitted mobile vending locations within South Lake Tahoe. So, that's one of the big deals is, they're very, very strict about, where we can even operate. Now, with us getting poised to become, the first true, I guess, mobile food truck here within the municipality, one of those things is that we need to go out and obtain, there's like 4 levels of permitting, which I'm certain that, no one wants to be bored with. But one of those levels is, we need to actually, even after we get our business license, after we pass the health inspection, we need to go out and get our mobile vending permit, which that when we do have that then with the approval of our locations from the South Lake Tahoe Police Department will allow us to actually operate within approved city right of way. So, to layman's terms, basically what that means is we can we operate like a food truck would operate, where maybe we're going and posting up in one spot for a few hours during the lunchtime. We can roll back to our commissary, restock, and then go post up somewhere else for a dinner, kind of service. So, sure. Yeah, but everything really, again, opened up with the addition of some new members to both city councils, some new younger business members that are really wanting to promote this this industry.
Yeah, different culture. Yeah, so I mean, times change. Obviously, the community has to change a little bit in their thought process, obviously, to kind of bring in something new concepts. So that's cool. Well, it sounds obviously you're in the thick of it here with trying to get the permits and all your I's dotted and T's crossed to get to your opening day. Well, and that reminds me, I want to dig into a little bit of how you got this thing started, and then we'll tell people exactly what the business is and actually mention how I noticed it. So I noticed that you guys were running I believe it was Kickstarter. Was it a Kickstarter program?
Yes, sir. It was a Kickstarter.
So it was on Kickstarter, and that's where I came across it. Started reading about that, that you were going to put this food truck together, and I thought, oh, that's really cool. I love food trucks, so it kind of spoke to me. It's and when I realized that there had not been food trucks in South Lake Tahoe, I'm thinking all right, that's it. I'm in. I got to make. I want to be part of making this happen, man, because it's that's ridiculous to me. So tell me about the status of the Kickstarter, because I want to get my trucker hat, man. What's going on with it? Is it finished, or tell me what's up?
Well, so I guess part of the Kickstarter, of course, is once because Kickstarter, for anyone out there who is not familiar with it, is a fundraising platform similar to like a GoFundMe or anything like that. The difference being that with a Kickstarter campaign, which is reserved for what they call creative projects, like it is mostly used for startup artists, like musicians like yourself, any sort of like actual, more physical artistry. Also like new products, new and interesting products. Basically, it's not just hey, I'm trying to start a business, like I'm trying to,
a higher level of requirement to kind of get on the platform and
correct.
Be accepted as a valid project.
Exactly.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, cool.
Yep. So with Kickstarter, it is kind of an all or nothing proposition. So basically what you do is you set a budget, or you set a goal for yourself. In our case, our goal was $15,000, and you either hit that goal within the set time period, which can be anywhere from 30 to 60 days, according to Kickstarter's parameters. So you either hit the goal and you collect all the money that has been pledged up to that point, or you don't and you get nothing. So it's definitely something that is a little bit, I guess, riskier than like just simply doing a GoFundMe. One of the reasons why we chose to go down that route is, I guess it's kind of twofold. First off, just being in this day and age where so many people have gotten hit pretty darn hard with this COVID thing, we just didn't feel like GoFundMe was an appropriate platform for business funding, I guess.
Right.
We kind of felt as if that was a platform that should be more reserved for more like actual charitable donations for people, like within our own community who lost their jobs and having trouble keeping food on the table and the like. And then also because when you set that goal that, to raise $15,000 in 30 days is not easy. It's a lofty goal, but it keeps you going, So like, it's like, because a lot of times, you start like, if we went down the GoFundMe route, it's like you would start a GoFundMe, and you do a little, promotion for it, and you raise, maybe a couple $1,000s or whatever, and then it just kind of fizzles out.
Right.
And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's like the Kickstarter, when you know that you have to hit that goal or you're not getting any of it, like, holy moly,
Right.
I all of a sudden became like I felt like I was like a political campaign fundraiser or something.
Well, you can't just dip your toe in the water. You go like it forces you to go for it, which I think is good because that kind of separates people out, and it's like, are you serious about the business or not? So,
For sure.
So tell me about what happened. I mean, you just recently hit your goal. Is that right? I've been trying to watch the emails. So
Yeah, so we ran our campaign. By the way, thank you very much for your pledge, Jim. It's much
welcome.
appreciated. Your trucker hat is on the way.
okay, nice. Can't wait, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started the campaign back on July 1st. We decided we were going to run it from July 1st through July 30th. The whole timing of everything was kind of difficult. Particularly, we had planned on doing it earlier than that, honestly.
Yeah.
But again, when COVID hit, it was like, okay, well, do we really want to be going out and trying to fundraise in May, when everyone has been hit pretty hard financially,
Right.
And that, again, this is before I guess, before a lot of people had received their stimulus checks, a lot of people are
Sure.
still waiting on unemployment, yada, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm.
So we ran our campaign from July 1st through July 30th. As is the case with many most Kickstarter campaigns, you promote it in the beginning, you get that initial surge. We were able to raise $5,000 within the first week, easy.
Right.
And then you get a little bit of a lull in the middle, because that, and in reality, it's if you're going to run let's just call it a 4-week campaign, it's those middle 2 weeks that are really the most challenging because the excitement's there on the front end, and then as long as you're close, it's fairly it's easier to build excitement on the back end as well.
Right.
It's those middle 2 weeks where you kind of get the lull, but we were fortunate, we were able to push through, and our local newspaper here, the Tahoe Daily Tribune. Big shout out to them. They
Nice.
really helped us push through that lull because they, kind of posted an article there in the paper that got a lot of notoriety beyond, the reach of mine and Eric's own kind of social network.
Sure.
Which was awesome.
Well, that's nice. You have the community. You're building the community. I think that's another benefit of going that Kickstarter route, where it helps you build community and future customers in advance of the business, so you have an audience, when you open, and it helps you really, kind of just to give you the boost that you need to kick it off. So, well, just waiting to tell people what this thing is. So, Eric, maybe we could switch over to you and say, like, well, what are you guys talking about? What is the business? What food are you serving, or what's the concept?
So the company name is Crepes and Craft.
Crepes and Craft. Okay.
So crepes is going to be the primary focus on the food side of things. We'll be doing sweet and savory options for the crepes, and probably have a rotating special as well that we can throw in there. And then in order to kind of fill out the menu a little bit more, we decided to kind of stick with that similar theme and go with gourmet grilled cheese sandwiches.
Sounds good.
That, from a business model perspective, is going to work really well for us. We're not going to overcomplicate things by going in too many different directions. And, it ultimately works out well just with the equipment that we've already purchased for the crepes.
I see. Yeah, that sounds good. So I'm looking at some of the dishes here on some of the items, I guess, on your website here. Can you rattle off a couple, or you want me to read a couple? I'm sure you got the recipes in your head, but
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So we're really excited, and truth be told, Jim, so that website, the menu there that you're looking on the website, we actually just officially finalized our menu this weekend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we've made a few changes, but I mean, most of what you see there is still going to remain the same. But yeah, I mean, some of the ones that we're really excited about, in terms of like a sweet crepe that I'm particularly excited about. Eric had this awesome idea for a baklava crepe, which I think.
Oh, yeah, that's not on here. Okay. Well, that sounds
Yeah.
good.
So basically, baklava is a great dessert to have. The texture, the flavor, and it's honestly kind of a difficult thing to source. Not everywhere has baklava. You either need to go to a really nice bakery or a Greek Mediterranean restaurant.
Right.
So my thought was to take that flavor and incorporate it into a crepe. But I was going to lose the texture, right? Obviously, baklava, you have to have that phyllo dough, that crispy, crunchy. So what we're going to do is make phyllo dough ahead of time, work it into the crepe. So basically, you're going to have real baklava built inside and folded into a crepe.
I like it.
Drizzled with honey, little powdered sugar on top.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's
awesome.
cool that it's not something you see everywhere too. So it's like, I'd be like, oh, interesting.
Right.
Very cool.
And yeah, on that note, a couple of the other ones, like a savory crepe that I'm particularly, excited about. Again, kind of a new addition. It's similar to what, you're going to be seeing there. We just tweaked it a little bit as the truffle. We're calling it the urban truffle now. It's going to be, some wild mushrooms, some black truffle oil, some Point Reyes blue cheese, and then a slew of herbs that are going to make it, it is delicious, savory, satisfying, the whole 9 yards. A gourmet grilled cheese, selections are going to be, pretty phenomenal. Again, one of the ones that I know is going to be a huge seller is one of Eric's faves. It's called the Rhinestone Cowboy, which is some cream cheese, a little sharp cheddar, some grilled jalapenos, some peppered bacon. I mean, it's like
that.
Yeah, it's
see, now that's something I would order, because if I kind of live more towards the East Coast, but when I'm out on the West Coast, I'm thinking like, I need something with cowboy in it, the Rhinestone Cowboy. You just got those flavors of the West in a way.
Oh yeah,
speaks to me.
Oh, absolutely. And then another new addition that we kind of decided to make here recently, again, with Eric and I both hailing originally from New England. I grew up in New Hampshire, Eric grew up in Vermont, and we, of course, have an affinity for lobster and lobster rolls in particular.
Yes.
And that is one thing that it is very difficult to come across out west, particularly in Tahoe. So we're going to be doing kind of, a little twist on a lobster roll, but with with some like Cape Cod seasoning, and we're going to kind of keep it very New Englandy, I guess. Just again because that's where we hail from. So, we're looking forward to that.
A little bit of home right there, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we're going to be doing some more like small bites too that we decided to add. Things like we're going to be doing. We're going to be working with a local baker here in town who's making us little mini like sourdough, almost think like sourdough baguettes. So we're going to be doing like grilled cheese sliders, like little mini grilled cheese sliders. That you can order with like a tomato basil bisque for some dunking. We're going to be.
You're making me hungry now, dude. I'm thinking like, man, this is exactly what I want when I come down off the mountain, like après ski, whatever.
Absolutely. Hey, Jim, this is the fun part. It's like, trust me, we'll talk all day about the food. It's,
I know,
the permitting and stuff.
I was just going to ask you, like,
wants to hear about that.
Seriously, I'm like starving right now. But but let's touch on the craft part of Crepes and Craft though, because I know that's your specialty. Well, it sounds like you obviously have a lot of food experience too, but Eric, I think, comes from the the back of the house, kind of the food side, and you've been on the front of the house in the bartending world and managing bars and those kind of things, and building cocktails.
Yep.
But what kind of craft mocktails are you going to serve? Yeah,
so I've been, I don't know, I still have a little hesitancy to even use the word, but I consider myself to be a mixologist, so I guess all that really means is just it's more than just building a vodka tonic, it's actually like
a little bit more complicated than that.
Yeah, it's more like you actually have to build recipes and like you got some more exotic ingredients and that sort of thing, but we are not allowed, of course, out of a mobile establishment to serve alcohol at this point in time anyway. So to kind of translate my experience over to the food truck, we're going to be offering a host of craft mocktails. So these are craft beverages that are going to be made with bases from anywhere ranging from kombucha to kefir water to a variety of different juices to all sorts of like probiotic beverages, cold brew coffees, all sorts of neat stuff that then we're going to be adding a variety of ingredients, from like spirulina powders to MCT oils to, collagen peptides,
Okay.
All sorts of stuff that I get.
So I know about like a third of what you just mentioned. I know what they are. But the other 2/3, yeah, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah, it's gonna and the whole so the theory behind this was, okay, well, let's like continue and stick with like the mixology theme, but have it be more health oriented,
Right,
versus like, obviously, although you can have healthy ingredients in a cocktail, it's the booze kind of, negates a lot of that.
Right.
But, the unfortunate thing and the issue that we're having right now, because originally I was referring to it as medicinal mixology.
Okay.
In part of this permitting process, something that has been brought to our attention is that in order to make that a medicinal or any other health claims for that matter, you actually need to be approved through the FDA in order to do that.
Right.
And at this point, anyway, that's a little bit more than we are wanting, a little bit more of a road than what we're wanting to go down, at least in terms of the naming. So rather than call it medicinal mixology, we're just simply referring to them as craft mocktails now. And, we cannot make any particular, health benefit claims.
Right.
I think there is obviously the clientele that's going to be looking for that kind of stuff. I think that it's kind of implied in there. They understand
Sure.
that this is stuff that's good for you. So
Right.
So so that's fun. That's kind of how that's my I guess shtick and how I'm kind of adding to the whole craft side of things, and as you mentioned, Eric's kind of more the food guy and I'm kind of more the drink guy, if you want to look at it.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, it's a good combination. I think it's a good concept of good types of sort of food you can kind of hold in your hands, because it has to be sort of a mobile thing, and then like it probably just speaks to the sort of that West Coast mindset, the nature-based mindset of being in Lake Tahoe, of just drinking something that's really good for you, or that has some good, other types of things than just sugar water, for example.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Well, and so many of the cocktail bars out here now, the ones that can serve alcohol are serving non-alcoholic mocktails now, because there's a very, it's actually one of the largest growing, craft non-alcoholic beverages is one of the largest growing categories in the bar industry right now.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because it's something that is relatively new, but is really starting to again build some momentum.
Right.
So.
Well, you know what? I thought about that with this COVID thing, because, like for example, there's I think an order in Ohio now that you can't serve alcohol past 10 p.m.
Right.
They don't want people hanging out late, getting too drunk, and then that's going to affect your behavior, and you're going to be too close to people or whatever.
Right.
But, if you're a business and you're trying to pivot and you're thinking like, well, what else can I serve or whatever, maybe I'll just turn my bar into, non-alcoholic after 10 p.m. and stay open a couple of more hours, but it won't serve alcohol. You could still do that, within the law or within these guidelines now. So I could see that COVID might accelerate that trend. It's pretty interesting.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, I think people are a lot more health conscious now than we were even 6 months ago,
Right.
Because,
They're like, I better up my immune system like right now.
Exactly. And it's funny that you mentioned like the benefits, any situation, it's something like my dad always told me, is that my dad was also, a small business owner, and he always told me that there's no such thing as a bad market. There's
That's
just
right.
different markets. It's
That's
all
right.
about how you look at it. It's all about finding the silver linings. And as you mentioned, it's all about pivoting and being adaptable,
Right. Right.
to any given environment. And coincidentally, because even though we did the idea for this food truck project, we had pre-COVID. It just seems like it's an ideal time for us to be launching something like this, particularly in the state of California, because as it exists, the measures and regulations are always changing. But as it exists today, if you are a brewery, winery, distillery, anything like that in the state of California that wants to serve alcohol, you have to serve food. You are not allowed
Oh, interesting.
to
Okay.
sell alcohol without food. And so many of those type establishments, like, which again, there are a lot of in California, do not have kitchens. So basically, they have been forced, whether they want to or not, to go out, either build a kitchen and start serving food,
Right.
or outsource it,
Partner with
which
someone.
is
Sure.
exactly, which is where we come in, and which is where this whole food truck thing, this food truck business model, coincidentally just happens to, like, we kind of chose a really ideal time, because we've had a lot of businesses kind of clamoring, and asking, hey, when are you guys going to get going? When are you going to get going? Like, because we need you.
Right.
we
Right.
we need something like you to operate. So
Well, when do you, I was just going to ask you, when do you think your grand opening is going to be? I know there's permitting. You probably don't know exactly when the dates will be, but it's sometime in September. Is that safe to say?
So our target date right now is September 3rd.
September 3rd.
And
Okay.
yeah, and we have a a big announcement here. So we actually just solidified. We are going to be operating as soon as we are ready to go. Hopefully September 3rd. I would say we're about 90% confident that that's going to happen. That September 3rd date will happen. And we're going to be operating 5 days a week, actually, out at South Lake Brewing Company. So
okay.
they
Nice.
are one of our local brewers.
So you're partnering right off the get-go, it sounds like.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
that's
because
great.
again, they kind of, given the state of things right now, they need to be serving food in order to stay open. So,
Sure.
they actually, we've been in contact and gone back and forth with them for months now. And we met up with Nicole, one of the owners over there at South Lake yesterday. They actually, I mean, they are awesome people. They're super, like, they're huge advocates for this whole food truck scene in general. They actually completely outfitted the brewery to be, like, specifically so that they could, cater to food trucks.
Oh, okay,
so
nice.
they have a little beer garden, where they open up the double doors, and we can park right there and open up our serving window and literally serve right into their beer garden, right through our serving window.
Right.
They have, logistically, they have all the electrical hookups and everything that we need. But so Thursdays through Mondays, again, fingers crossed, but looking good. Starting September 3rd, we're going to be operating right there at South Lake Brewing Company.
Okay.
So
well, awesome,
really
man.
excited about that. Yeah.
That sounds great. Well, okay. So I can't. I mean, if I get my act together, I might be making a West Coast swing. So maybe I'll be able to stop by maybe in the fall. We'll see what happens.
Oh, I hope
Because
so.
I'm kind of grounded now with travel. Everybody's grounded, but I might be just driving across the country is what I'm thinking, maybe for the fall or even in the winter. So it's going to be a great addition to the scene out there. But this is not. This is obviously a new project for you and for Eric. And I know you weren't doing this a few years ago, because we met a few years ago in Hawaii, if you remember. Maybe we can rewind a little bit and talk about, like, what you've been thinking about the last few years and how you got to deciding that you're going to put a food truck together.
No, that is a great question, because I often ask myself that question.
Right? Because when I met you, we were at this e-commerce, and I want to give a shout out to Dropship Lifestyle, because it was the Dropship Lifestyle e-commerce conference, dropshipping conference, and it seems like everybody who I met through that conference is just really fun, interesting people with really good mindsets, like you were talking before about, there's no bad market. It's just kind of the way you see the world. And it was a real treat for me to meet you and to meet Allie. And I always have good feelings about thinking about you guys. That's why I kind of kept my eye on you guys ever since we met a few years ago, just through Facebook and stuff. Because I remember, I don't know if you remember, I just want to bring this up real quick, but this was the first business conference that I went to, where we get there and everybody's kind of chatting with each other beforehand on Facebook, because there was a Facebook group put together for it. Mm-hmm. And we get there and someone reaches out and says, hey, we're going to do yoga by the pool or whatever in the morning. And I'm like, oh, they are? Well, that's interesting. Oh, it's just sort of an informal thing. Oh, that never happened to me at a business conference, because I was coming from the corporate world, which that doesn't just seem to happen in that world. Maybe it does now. Maybe the world's changed.
Probably, who knows?
But back then it was like, no, this is never happening at one of my engineering conferences. So I'm like, well, okay, I'll go with it. And I remember it was Allie, which is Nick's wife, I guess. I think she put it together, but you guys were both there, and you guys were so mellow and cool, and like playing it off as if, maybe it was your first time doing yoga. I just downloaded this app or whatever, and we start doing yoga. Like I'm jumping in, I'm thinking like, oh my god, these two are like for real, like really really fit and really into yoga, and I just kind of love the idea that you guys were entrepreneurial enough just to get the whole group together to follow you back then.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, how cool is that, man?
Oh yeah, well, and let me start off by saying I agree. Big shout out to Dropship Lifestyle. For anyone who is not familiar with them, Anton and the crew.
Yeah.
If you ever are interested in learning, the whole drop shipping game, or really anything, or e-commerce related for that matter, that is a wonderful place to start. They put on awesome retreats like the one that we were at in Hawaii.
Yeah, they do.
Allie and I, my wife, my beautiful wife, hi babe, we try to stay very physically active. We wouldn't be living in places like Lake Tahoe if we had sedentary lifestyles. Right. So, we try to stay physically active, and actually, believe it or not, Jim, I don't know if you even know this, but since then I have actually gone on and gotten my yoga teacher certification.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so I'm actually now a certified yoga instructor.
Okay, well, okay. I'm glad you brought this up, because it was like maybe a year after that, like 2017 or 2018, something like that. You started posting these pictures. Like Allie was like, okay, she's the yoga girl. She would post some stuff, and I'd see like, oh man, she's really good. Yeah. Like she's fit and strong. These positions where she's holding herself just by her hands, holding her body off the ground, handstands. And then you started posting this stuff. And I'm like, wait a second, like this dude does this too? Like crazy contorted positions, and where you're like doing arm balances and handstands. And I'm like, now it makes sense. I didn't know you were so into it. But that's, I don't know, it's inspiring to me that you guys are so good and have so much fun together and travel a bunch. That was another thing that kind of blew me away when I met this crowd of people. That's like, hey, you took a lot of time to travel, see the world. And that was definitely the direction I wanted to go. So I just appreciate that.
And that's kind of the whole idea with, the e-commerce thing is it gives you that location independent lifestyle.
Yeah. Sure.
So it's you don't have to be grounded to one particular location. And I think that, that's one of the reasons why at a retreat like Dropship Lifestyle, we do get together and do things that you maybe wouldn't at a normal business, retreat, because it is, it's a more specific kind of individual that is a little bit more adventure oriented, unconventional, I guess, if you want to call it that. Yeah. Although, you understand what I'm saying.
I do. Yeah. That's kind of the right thing. And it was just like, it really spoke to me. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I got to learn more about this. I need to dive into it. And that's what really led to me starting the podcast. So, I was doing e-commerce for a while, and then I thought, you know what, I got to continue learning about digital marketing and explore these ideas and turn more people on to this understanding of the world, really. And that's what the Reinvention Revolution is all about, of course. So anyways, but you've had your own reinvention, so you're not doing e-commerce anymore. And so why did you get out of that, and how did you pivot into starting a food truck?
Yeah. So, I guess obviously I'll try and give you the Reader's Digest version here,
Right.
but,
Well, it's just good for people to hear, like, kind of what goes through people's minds and how they think about and process the world, and think about how they can leverage the new technologies and the new approaches for themselves.
well, my wife, Allie, has a very, very entrepreneurial mindset. As I mentioned earlier, my father was a small business owner. He's an entrepreneur of his own, and so we both have always had an entrepreneurial mindset. We didn't necessarily know where we wanted to go with that. I think in the beginning, anyway. What we kind of ended up going down the e-commerce road and dropship lifestyle and all of that because we are travelers, and we like to we don't like to be stuck in one particular location. We like to kind of have our freedom, so we explored that aspect of e-commerce, where as long as you have a Wi-Fi connection and a computer, you can work, as you can work from anywhere in the world.
That's right.
So it's a very, appealing proposition for sure. I think where it ended up, where we began to pivot out of it was we both kind of decided. So as entrepreneurial as we are, we're also not super, I guess, techie people, or like tech savvy, or we were having a lot of trouble, I guess, with a lot of the tech related elements in operating an e-commerce business, and we're not really having a lot of fun sitting in front of our computers for hours on end trying to figure it all out. And it wasn't something where we picked up and dropped like that. I mean, we tried it for about 2 years while we were still working our other jobs, and in the end we just decided that it was something that, although we saw potential in it for sure, we kind of decided it just wasn't quite what we had anticipated and quite what we had in mind for our lifestyle anyway. Right. So at that point, started to pivot out of it. I've been a bartender for 12 years. I mean, like, I enjoy interacting with people. I like, the energy, the excitement, all of that of the service industry. So I kind of wanted to get back into it. I had a great opportunity with, a buddy of mine who is a business owner here in town who, kind of welcomed me back into the game, managed the bar at a awesome spot. If you're ever in South Lake Tahoe, the Loft, the Loft Tahoe, it's a lounge craft cocktail tapas bar, really kind of chic. It's very nice, place to visit if you're here in South Lake. But so managed the bar there at the Loft for a couple years, and then started to have this whole food truck idea, and it really was inspired again. I've always loved the idea of food trucks. I mean, I first fell in love with the idea, after visiting Portland, Oregon, and that's like the food truck mecca.
Sure.
It's like,
absolutely. That's why I was so confused. Like, how can there not be food trucks in Tahoe?
Right.
This is insane.
Exactly.
So like the West Coast, they're everywhere. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So after, being introduced to the scene up in Portland, really started thinking about wanting to launch, a food truck someday. But at that point they were still not allowed in, where we call home. Right. So once that ordinance passed, again, back in March of 2019, that's when the idea, when the seedling, I guess, kind of grew into a sapling. Gotcha. Where it's like, okay, well, now this is actually doable. So I remained where I was for the time being. And then, back in January, I was like, okay, it's 2020. Not only are we in a new, we're in a whole new decade now. Like, I don't know.
New horizons are here.
Right. I just kind of felt like the winds of change were there. Right.
Right.
And that's when I reached out to Eric, and said, so I have this food truck idea,
Right.
I don't want to do it.
What are we going to do
myself.
about it? Yeah.
Right. I don't want to, I can't do it by myself.
Right. Right.
So what do you say we quit our jobs in a few months and, put the wheels in motion so
Right.
that we could perhaps quit our jobs in a few months and get this thing going.
Right.
And, Eric, being the buddy that he is, was like, sounds good.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So now, Eric, were you already out in Tahoe? Like, have you been in Tahoe for a while?
Yep. I've been in Tahoe since 2010.
Okay. So that's a little while, yeah.
And I've been in the vacation rental industry out here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Managing vacation rentals. So
you weren't even working in the food industry out there?
not in Tahoe, no.
Oh, really?
It has been a little while since I've cooked professionally.
Okay.
I've always enjoyed doing it. I always get creative at home in my own kitchen. But yes, my professional training is more from my 20s. I also went to culinary school.
Oh, you did? Okay, so your background's in food, but you just hadn't been doing it the last few years. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that. Okay.
The industry is tough. I kind of left it in my late 20s, and it was because I was working for others. And that was kind of my decision, was I don't want to do this for other people. So when Nick presented this opportunity, it was really the first time where I would be able to get back into something I really enjoyed doing, but doing it for myself.
Yeah, I like that. That's great. And doing it small, start small where you can kind of control it. I think it's really a good way to go about doing it. Yeah. And it's lower, it's a somewhat lower risk. It's not, you don't have to rent lease a place for a year and all those kind of things. Like, it's low startup costs essentially for doing a food truck version of whatever you're going to do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we were going to go out and try to, start a restaurant, I mean, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
What a terrible time to try and do it.
Yeah. Now's not the time probably to do that.
The time.
I mean, maybe not. It's just depending on how you look at it. But
well, right. Again, depending on how you look at it, I think you just have to understand, now, of course, at least out here where we are, California, there's no indoor dining period happening right now.
Right.
So,
I was going to say maybe if you had like a new drive-through concept or something, now's the time to try it or something like that. But
it would have been a very hard pivot for us had we decided to go brick and mortar from the get-go and then have to adapt to that.
Right.
Yeah.
Through COVID.
No, I think it's perfect because you can, with the food truck, it remains flexible. You could go brick and mortar at some point if you wanted to, or just go to a ghost kitchen once you have the brand established. Even
100%.
Right, just people can order from you. They know what the food is, and they know the menu. So that's what's happening here. Actually, in Cleveland, there's a couple, bigger, sort of famous chefs in town. Because it's kind of a foodie town, Cleveland. And he just closed his main restaurant, Fire at Shaker Square. That's been a foodie restaurant here for 20 years. But he's like, you know what? Maybe it's time just to close it. Things are shut down anyways. And he started a ghost kitchen and a smaller restaurant in the meantime. So he's kind of pivoting and just going with the flow.
Well, and again, you have to nowadays.
Yeah.
I recently read a statistic that on average, 60% of restaurant business currently is through takeout and delivery services.
Yeah.
Because of the shift in everything. And, we are also getting on board with that. So one of our, because we are going to be operating on the trailer during like daytime hours, from about, let's just say noon to 8,
right.
But then all of our prep time, we're actually going to be doing our prep at night. So from about 8 p.m. to as needed, and so, but we're like, well, heck, if we're going to be there doing prep anyway, why don't we offer our food, for takeout and delivery?
Right.
So, because there are not really a lot of late night options here in Tahoe,
I see.
or in South Lake Tahoe anyway.
Right.
So,
right.
So we're pivoting to that whole kind of ghost kitchen idea, and doing things like, implementing, of course, online ordering systems, partnering up with delivery services like Uber Eats,
Right. I was just going to ask you about that, kind of the technology side. So that's one of the questions I like to to kind of pick people's minds, how they think about technology and how they're integrating it into their business. So I was just going to ask you about, like, I know my behavior has changed, for example, because we're in COVID. I had never used a online sharing service delivery service. Like, I use the old school delivery where you call the restaurant and they might have their own delivery service. But I never used DoorDash or Uber Eats or Grubhub. Yeah. Now I use DoorDash all the time. Like, my behavior's changed. Like, I get it now. Yeah. But I was kind of forced into it,
Yeah, of course. Well, you're right. I mean, raise your hand if you had ever used the Zoom app before, right. I mean, seriously.
Obviously the online entrepreneurs know about that stuff, but like the general public just has discovered it, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I literally, back in March, I had never heard of Zoom, and then by April, I was on Zoom like 7 times a day. Right. It's like, so yeah, I mean, everything, of course, is pivoting, and certainly, especially right now, technology is, even for, and you don't think about, well, how are you implementing technology on a food truck? But I mean, I don't care what business you're getting into right now. Like, you are implementing a significant amount of technology. Right. And, for us, I guess, specifically with the food truck thing, I've already, mentioned a few of the ways that we have going all the way back. I mean, Kickstarter was the first one, Exactly. Again, we were able to fundraise through an online platform, that even never was not a thing 20 years ago.
That's right.
We certainly, again, with like online ordering, that's kind of the wave that everyone's going to. It's like, and I actually get a little frustrated. It's kind of silly, but I get a little frustrated like when I actually have to call in a takeout order nowadays, because I'm like, come on.
Oh yeah, once you figure out how to do this app thing.
Exactly.
And then your old previous orders are in there, and you're like, oh, I think I'll just do that again. And it's like one button click.
Exactly.
And you're like, this is awesome.
Like your credit, I mean, it's just
your credit card's loaded in already. Yeah, it's
exactly. It's like in 2 clicks, I can have my order ready, and I mean, that I think is one of the neatest things, that has come out of all this, is that a lot of restaurants going down that online ordering road, which of course we will be implementing as well.
For sure.
Yeah, and then as you mentioned, Uber Eats, DoorDash, Grubhub, partnering
what about
up with.
What about your point of sale system? So that's another technology piece that you have to figure out as an entrepreneur. Like, are you using Square, or what kind of system? Have you looked into that yet?
We are using Square.
Okay.
And I guess we did our research and we looked into a lot of different options, and there are other good ones out there. I just, for our purposes, Square is it is mobile and pretty easy to use, very, very simple user interface. It also offers a lot of things like like, again, given this current situation, things like contactless payment. Right. So, being able to use like Apple Pay on your phone, or like tap to pay type services. And then it also has a very, very user friendly and easy to create online ordering platform. So, because you kind of, that's the way to integrate all of your POS and your accounting and all of that, you need to run everything through one platform. So like,
that could be kind of like a one-stop shop, similar to Shopify, I guess. So like in the e-commerce world, you use Shopify as your e-commerce engine. I guess Square does that for, taking physical credit cards, I guess, right?
Yep. Absolutely. It's very, very similar to Shopify. It's like the Shopify for retail.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's cool.
Yeah,
well, cool. Well, we got a few minutes left on the podcast, but before we get out of here, there's always a couple more pointed questions I like to ask people. And one is, which I feel is kind of like it's just a funny time for people now with this COVID. Like, what are you feeling urgent about these days? And Nick or Eric, whoever wants to answer that. Chime in, because I think sometimes that can help people, set their mind on a different track, or alert them to something maybe they should be thinking about.
Well, I mean, I think for us, the urgency at this point is to just get operating. Mm-hmm. The due to COVID, everything has kind of backed up a little bit, and we're getting a later start than we originally anticipated back in January when we started this conversation. And so, almost the entire summer has just been a series of hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
The
frustration
and
of
so
that. Yeah.
now that summer is drawing to a close, me personally, I'm just antsy to get back to work.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
And then I think, the other side of that is, as a business owner in this current environment, and particularly in the food service, category, the regulations and everything, it's like everything is just changing so quickly, and it's kind of hard to keep up with. Throughout this entire permitting process for us, it's been like, everything is just rapidly changing. So I guess maybe one of the concerns that we have, even though we do feel like we have a pretty good business model for this current environment, you just never know. You never know what's going to happen with the food service industry. I mean, at any given point in time, if case numbers start to spike again when it gets cold or whatever, it's like they could just kind of shut everything back down again. And obviously that is, as anyone trying to launch a business in 2020, certainly understands that these are not particularly normal times, and it's very, it's very difficult to make any sort of like real accurate predictions, now, because it's just everything is changing day to day so quickly.
Right. Well, I think that makes sense, and it makes sense that you're on top of it in terms of like keeping your antenna up, really, like, hey, what's going on? Is something changing? Do we need to pivot again or whatever?
Right.
And I think the ghost kitchen option, especially if you're just going to create this brand, and even if you get shut down, if you can still do deliveries, I mean, that's what's so interesting about the technology capabilities these days, that you can still build an audience, build a brand, serve your customers, in these crazy times that we're living in, right? Really? Yeah. I mean,
and that's why it's
incredible.
Been such a, when back in January, again, when we first started talking about this, I mean, I can't say like we weren't really talking about doing, I mean, maybe here and there, but not much. Like takeout and delivery was not like really a piece of our overall business model,
Right.
Takeout obviously, but certainly not delivery services.
Yeah. Right.
And it is something that now has become like one of our primary objectives, is to get that side of the business going right now, because as you just mentioned, if everything were to get shut down again, if we can no longer operate at the brewery or anywhere else for that matter, well, we still have the takeout and delivery option, to kind of fall back on it, hopefully anyway. But
and even if you didn't need to or weren't allowed to operate out of the truck, you could take it to a commissary and still run your brand and business.
Correct.
Right.
Exactly.
Because if you can't park your truck anywhere that's where the Board of Health can say you can operate or whatever.
Right.
I could see where you could still carry on. Yeah. So that's great, man. Well, I got one last question for you guys, and that is, through this sort of recent pivot that everyone's had to take through COVID and reinventing yourselves as these food truck entrepreneurs. Is there any reinvention revelation that you can share with people, that something that you learned about yourself or about the business that you might not have thought about or didn't appreciate at the time?
I mean, certainly, anytime you are, I mean, reinvention is, well, in my mind, it's the way of the world right now. I mean, I don't know. Have you ever read the book Sapiens? By what is it?
I know of it. I've been recommended it a few times, but it's on my reading list.
Yeah, fantastic book, and I'm probably going to butcher the author's name right now, but I believe it's Yuval Noah Harari.
Okay.
I think.
You know what? I'll find the link and put it in the show notes so people can
exactly.
find
Anyway,
it.
Sapiens, for anyone who hasn't read it, it's an excellent walkthrough through like basically human society and kind of just like how we got to where we are.
Right.
But I guess, in reference to the author, one of the things that I just recently read in the book Tribe of Mentors, actually by Tim Ferriss, he was asked, okay, well, if you have one piece of advice for college graduates nowadays, what is it? And his response was, well, if anyone, basically he said that the world is changing so quickly nowadays that anything that you are learning right now could very well be obsolete in 20 years. So,
in 20 years. I was going to say in 10 years or 5 years.
Yeah, well, I mean, exactly. And
Yeah.
I mean, 20 years, yeah. But, just the kind of idea being is that we no longer live in a world in which, you go to school, you learn what you need to learn in order to, be active in whatever particular profession or it is that you're trying to be active in, and then you go into that profession, and basically, in the past, you kind of, for the most part, not that there wasn't some continuous learning, but for the most part, you kind of had your foundation that you could kind of just rely on for the rest of your career.
Right.
And nowadays, I mean, that couldn't be more incorrect, I think, because again, the world is just changing so quickly, not only with this COVID, thing, but just technology in general, the way it is continually, evolving our societies, our planet in general. I mean, it's more about like being willing and able to, adapt to the environment.
That's
and knowing, I guess, in a cliche term, knowing how to learn and how to continue to evolve as an individual. And I think that, that is what my biggest revelation has been throughout all this is, just you can anytime, again, from like, forget about 20 years, let's talk about 8 months, I mean,
Right,
from,
exactly.
we had this idea back in January, and look at everything that has happened from now to, from then to now.
Right, exactly.
And it's like, you just cannot, you have to understand that, it is that hurdles and problems and, situations that is called life. That's life. Like if it was all just rainbows and butterflies, we would, life would actually be pretty boring. So
exactly. Got to appreciate the changes and how the world spins, I guess.
Right. It's making progress, being adaptable, and continuing to find ways to achieve your goals, despite what the world may be throwing at you.
Right.
I guess.
And I think the good news there is that there's never been more access and ways to educate yourself and look around and benefit from all the changes that are happening. Benefit if you lean into these things. That's kind of my takeaway. What I've been learning the last few years since my own reinvention got started. Kind of around 2016 or so. Kind of going from the more traditional, corporate world to the online entrepreneurial world, and I really felt like I just needed to learn more about the internet and the digital side of things because I felt it was really coming. And now it's just a few years later, and I'm thinking like, man, the whole name of the show and my thought process, it was really foreshadowing maybe what this moment in time right now where it's like everyone's forced to kind of really rethink things. So,
heck yeah.
Eric, do you have anything to chime in on that one with before we get out of here?
Not really. No.
Not really. Okay. Fair enough, man. Well, guys, thanks so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. Nick's great. It was great catching up with you. Just talking with you last week, and I'll be watching and seeing what's going on with you. If people want to find Crepes and Craft and try all these, sweet or savory crepes or crazy, healthy, creative mocktails, where would you send them? How would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so our website is pretty easy. It's crepesandcraft.com. So, spelled exactly like you would think. CREPESANDCRAFT.com. And then you can find us on, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Crepes and Craft, same, spelled exactly the same way. So at Crepes and Craft. And then, we would like to, again, starting on September 3rd, 90%, we are going to be beginning our operations at South Lake Brewing Company in South Lake Tahoe. We will be there Thursdays through Mondays from noon to 8-ish. And we would like to offer anyone who has listened to this podcast, come swing by, just tell us, mention to us that you listened to our, interview on Jim's, Reinvention Revolution podcast. And we would like to offer you 50% off on your first item purchased at the Crepes and Craft food truck.
Oh,
so,
awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate that, guys. That's awesome. So thanks, everybody. If anybody's listening out there and has heard that and knows anyone that's in the local Tahoe area or knows anyone that's going to be traveling out there, make sure you mention it or share this episode with them. And, of course, I'll have all this information in the show notes. And one more time, thanks again, guys.
Hey, thank you, Jim. We had a pleasure.
All right, cool, man. Thank you for listening to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. If you want to hear more, join our mailing list at jimjimsreinventionrevolution.com. See you next time. And remember, the revolution has just begun. So dig in, embrace the process of reinvention, and start realizing the success you've always dreamed of. Hey, revolutionaries, if you enjoyed today's episode and today's guest, let them know by commenting on their Facebook page, finding their Twitter handle or Instagram feed, and letting them know you heard them on Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, and tell them what you got out of the episode, what you really liked, or how they inspired you. I know they would get a kick out of it and will help others find the same value that you found.